Hello, everybody. This is Scott Woods. I'm coming to you live from the Bat Cave, somewhere in a secure location in the Midwest. Today, we're going to talk about equipment. Now, I can't cover all the equipment types that are available, in the U.S. trucking community or that brokers are going to deal with. I'm just going to show you some samples of what you're going to learn in our classes. You have to know the equipment if you want to be successful as a freight broker or freight broker agent. As I tell a lot of the agents, you have to think like a truck. You have to think like a trucking company. You have to think like a truck driver. You have to know the capabilities of what the equipment will load. You have to know what equipment is going to be required for the job. You have to know what other pieces of equipment can be used in place of the equipment that somebody might be requesting. That way you can make it more economical. You see, all equipment, you don't charge the same for all equipment. A dry van, the good old dry box that's going to haul tennis shoes, light bulbs, and God knows what else, those guys only get about $1.30, $1.40 a mile from a broker around America. Now, brokers, you can sell those, even on times of lean gas rates for about $1.70, $1.80. There's money to be made with them, but it's the lowest type of freight you're going to get. Now, I primarily move open top freight and more inclusively heavy haul. But before you can start moving what is called true heavy haul, you got to crawl before you can walk. Now, I've got not all, but principally the majority of the open top trailers I'm showing you right here. And you have to learn what these trailers can and can't do and when you should use one versus the other. I'm going to give you a quick little tutorial on it. I mean, when you take our classes, it's much more extensive, but we're going to give you a quick little tutorial just to kind of educate you on them. Now, I'm going to go from left to right, then I'm going to go from the center of the page down as we get into them, and I'll explain what these trailers are and some of the uses. Now you're going to see where it says 48 and 53 foot flatbeds. All right. A flatbed is a trailer which is open top. It's going to haul anything from steel coils to steel pipe to plastic PVC pipe. It could also haul plants and shrubbery or onions and potatoes and watermelons and pumpkins if it's got side rails thrown on it. But there's all types of variations of that trailer. So you might have some type of produce grower asking you for a flatbed with sides. You might have a steel hauler wanting you to just provide a flatbed with tarps and chains. You might have somebody that are moving pipe want a flatbed with tarps and straps. So all these things you have to take into consideration. Now, where it says 48 and 53 foot long, principally there are more 48-foot flatbeds around. 53s are less likely to be found. They're out there, but you're going to pay more money to get one as a broker. These things, they'll sit at what's called dock height. Dock height, if you ever hear that term, is 5 foot tall. Any truck backing into a dock, the bottom of the trailer is going to be 5 foot tall. Now, as we look to the right, you're going to see an expandable flatbed, all right, and it says 48 to 53 foot. You find you an expandable flatbed, better known in the industry as a stretch. All right, that thing can stretch out to 75 foot long, up to 115, 130, 140 foot long. It depends on the trailer specs, and it depends on who the manufacturer is, how many beams have been added, etc. Anytime they're over 130 foot long, they're going to be what's called steerable flatbeds. And that trailer itself, he might get $12 to $15 a mile because he has a pilot car, a steerman, which goes with him everywhere that will be steering the load with a remote. Now, as we drop down, we're going to see the 53-foot step deck with sliding rear axle. They can adjust their axles to accommodate for weight because what happens in certain states, you're only allowed to run so many pounds per axle. After you cross the Mississippi, generally those states will allow you more weight on axles. On the east side of the Mississippi, they're going to allow you less weight. Like on the east side of the Mississippi, it's pretty common for 10 to 12,000 pounds per axle. But you get out into places like Texas and what I call the cowboy states, they might allow you anywhere from 14 to 20,000 pounds per axle, depending on where you're located at. These are things that you have to know when you're bidding your freight, because when you're bidding your freight, you might have to have a trailer with more axles, which means more money. We deal with the power of scarcity in brokering freight. All right. When when a trailer is more scarce, it's generally more expensive to own, which generally increases the rate because it's also more expensive to run. And I'm going to get into that in here in just a second. That step deck right there, that's basically that front deck is, it's got a dock height front deck, all right, 5 foot tall, but then you'll see it drops, all right. That bottom deck in that area, it's known as the well right there, all right, and it could be on that 53 footer, it'll probably be probably about 42 foot long. Now, 53 foot step decks are a little more rare than the 48s, and depending on the manufacturer, their bottom deck height could be anywhere from 36 inches to 42 inches high. Anytime you can find one that's 36 inches, it's going to be known as a low pro. These things are great for running machinery, and that's what they're for. You can run a load generally up to about 10 foot to 10 foot 6 inches high without a permit on a step deck. It just depends on how high that bottom deck is. And of course, you see that there is a stretch version available with that. You'll see a lot of these running machinery, running oil field stuff, things of that nature. Now, as we get under that, we're going to see a double drop low boy RGN 2 or 3 axle. All right. Now, a double drop is in what's referred to as a low boy, and a low boy traditionally has an 18-inch bottom deck, and that's 18 inches from the ground. Most of them that you see today have a 24-inch deck, but the 18-inch is what you prefer, of course, because every inch you save is a permit you don't have to get, and that means you could pocket that money versus having to include that in your rate to the trucking company. Trucking companies know that. Go low, go low, go low. All right, well, this double drop, all right, and the one you're looking at right here, with those 3 axles, this would, the way it's set up, it would be able to transport a load. It's about 55 to 60,000 pounds. That's what it'll be able to hold, the trailer itself. And the reason that is, if you look at that, you have to take into consideration, you have to add the truck with it, and the truck's going to have 3 axles on it. You got your front axles, and you also have your rear, what I call the rear steers, your rear 2 axles, and even some trucks can have 3 axles. Okay, so basically, with that, if you just have a standard, semi that's pulling it, you're going to have 3 axles. So the 3 axles on the truck, the 3 axles on the trailer, that gives you 6 axles. Now, if you use as a general template that truck can scale 10,000 pounds per axle, he can transport a load of about 60,000 pounds. All right. Now, it'll still be a permitted load, but, for instance, he's not going to be able to transport a 90,000 pound excavator on that thing. He could transport some of the smaller stuff. But the double drop is used for basically loading your taller loads, generally from about 11 foot 6 inches tall up to 11 foot 6 inches tall to even some 12 foot tall. And this is without a permit. He could run higher loads, but the higher you get, depending on how tall it is, you're going to need a permit for it. And then you could even need what's called a pole car. And of course, you get a stretch version of this double drop. All right, and that thing could stretch out to 30, 40 foot in the well. You need a core. Occasionally, you'll need longer trailers, all right, to move a piece, because this is designed, the RGN portion, which is called removable gooseneck. That neck will drop off, and you can drive something up on that equipment. And you might have to drive a big wheel loader on there or something like that. Now, underneath, you're going to see that expandable flatbed. This is what I was talking about. They can stretch out, and they'll add additional beams to them, the trailer manufacturer. You might use something like that to run those telephone poles down from Canada. What a lot of people do when they can't, if you're ever fortunate enough to broker any windmill blades out, if you can't find blade trailers, which you'll see down here at the bottom, but if you can't find blade trailers, you'll put them on stretch flatbeds, that are steerable. All right. Now, underneath that expandable flatbed, you're going to see it says 6 and 9 axle high tonnage double drop expandable floor deck. Well, this is just a bigger version of that little RGN we just talked about, of that double drop up top. Now, you'll see that this could either be a 6 or a 9 axle trailer as you're looking at it. If you want the 9 axle, you'll see the first 3 axles. There has been a Jeep added to it. That's what that's called, is a Jeep. All right. Now, put the truck's axles in with this, and what you actually have here is a 12 or a 13 axle trailer. Because as you get into these bigger trailers right here, what's going to happen is you're going to have trucks that, instead of having just 2 rear axles, they'll have 3 rear axles. All right, so you'll have a 12 or a 13 axle configuration. Now, something like this will haul some small transformers that weigh about 140, 150, 160,000 pounds, with it. I mean, these are what's going to be for when you're getting into heavy haul. These are the trailers that you're going to use. I mean, heavy haul isn't a 7 or 8 or a 9 axle trailer total. I mean, real heavy haul doesn't start till after you get about 11 or 12 axles and above. Now, as you look underneath that, you have the same amount of axles, but it's a different configuration of this trailer. It's called a schnabel. This is what you run a lot of big transformers with, windmill tubes, big tanks. This is what would go on this. Now, once again, this will be another 9 or a 13 axle trailer. All right, and then you'll see on the rear, this is a dolly that's been added to this trailer, and it's steerable, and it'll come with a steerman. Where the one on the 6, the 9 axle on top here is not a steerable trailer with steerman. This one is. Now basically a steerman will go with this, because if he's running a windmill tube that's 15 or 16 foot wide, he'll have to steer this thing around a corner because the driver won't be able to see it. And they do that all through either a remote control, or they do that through a umbilical cord, which is attached to the trailer, and they'll walk it around. Now, as you go down further, you're going to see this blade trailer, and you'll see in the configuration it says it expands to 134 foot. Well, they actually expand a lot longer than that. Now, you got windmill blades that are everywhere from 42 meters long to 75 meters long. And depending on how long that blade is how long that trailer is going to be. I mean, right now, a lot of blade manufacturers are going to the pretty standard 59 meter blades, and a lot of the windmill trailers are being reconfigured and sent up to either South Dakota or Canada, and having fourth beams added to them so they can accommodate the bigger blades. You got to understand, some of these guys are getting $30 a mile to run these blades, so it's all about making that trailer work. But here's a cool thing about these blade trailers. All right, here's what you can run on them, because they're always looking for backhauls. Most of the time, these guys come back empty after they drop their blades at the pad. I've put bridge beams on these things. I've put airplane wings. I've put long poles on them. They're looking for backhauls, anything that they can bring in extra money to that trailer with versus going back empty. I love this trailer. I especially look to find freight to load it. Now, the last trailer we're going to talk about today is the old 19 axle. Now, once again, you have to add the axles to the truck. Now, this will have, the 19 has a steerman too. A lot of people think this is actually the biggest trailer made. It is not. It's just that it's the biggest trailer that a lot of brokers will ever have a chance to see, and very few will have a chance to put a load on it. I've loaded a 19 several times. With a 19, you have a steerman that goes with it. This is something you'll transport like a 200,000 pound transformer on. Some of your companies that have 19s out there are Miller Transfer. You've got Diamond out of Ohio. D&G out of Indiana. They're not really out there. These guys get about $50 a mile now. I mean, this is not cheap freight. They're going to charge you going and coming, whether they got something on there or not. They'll charge you just a deadhead toward the load because wherever they go, they are permitted. They're escorted, because they are so big. You ought to check out some of the 19 axles. Just look at them on YouTube with the type of loads that they're running. When you're bidding this freight, this is when you work in conjunction with a trucking company, and you build a relationship up to get these types of loads, because most brokers will never have the opportunity to get this type of freight just due to the fact they do not know about the equipment and they do not know how to bid it. I will give you one clue. A lot of people ask me to teach them how to move heavy haul, and I will be coming out with a heavy haul course. My secret to moving heavy haul, other than knowing the equipment, guys, go big or go home. You have a lot of brokers that get out there that tremendously underbid the stuff and make fools of themselves to the shipper, and the shipper will just discount them because they know if they bid it too cheap, they're going to have problems. So whoever they're getting, they want to make sure that they're going to have no issue. If they're spending 50, 80, $100,000 on a load, they want to make sure they're going to have no issue with that freight, and you got to pay more for that. Guys, take a look at our offerings that we have. Visit our website at www.freightbrokertrainer.com. Once again, www.freightbrokertrainer.com. This is Scott Woods. I'm signing off from the Bat Cave. I hope you've liked this video. Please view the rest of the videos on our YouTube channel. Have a great day.